Welcome to the Alcohol Addiction Podcast. I'm your host, Lee Davey. I'm not an alcoholic and I refuse to be anonymous. And today my guest is Reid. How's it going, Greg?
It is always good. Keep coming back.
Where are you, Greg?
I'm in San Diego, California, in the mean streets here in Carlsbad, right along the ocean.
Ooh, I bet it's a lot sunnier there than it is out here. It's currently raining and it always rains. And hey, let's start there, Greg. How do we keep a positive mind when it's raining all the time? And when I'm in California, which I am half the year because my wife lives there, I seem to be in a better frame of mind. Is there such a thing as season affective disorder, or do we just making it up in our heads? What's going on, Greg?
I believe it is. I mean, come on. Have you ever met someone who's angry in Hawaii or wherever? The realities are, I do believe that the sunshine follows a little positive mental attitude. But bottom line, Abraham Lincoln had a great quote. He says, people are as happy as they make up their minds to be. So I believe no matter where I go, I bring my positive mental attitude because I'm as happy as I choose to be.
And as soon as I met you, your energy straight away, you're vibrant. It's almost like your foundation is who you are. Has it always been like that, or have you had to work at it, Greg?
Nah, I've always been. It's so funny. When I was a kid, everyone gave me so much shit because I was positive and happy and, all this different stuff. And they said I had all that ADD stuff, or I was hyperactive. And then here I am, 54 years old, and I'm still that person. But now people pay me a boatload of money to bring that enthusiasm to their corporate events. So go figure. Right?
That's funny. My wife said to me, she was talking about some kid whose parent was worrying they had ADD or ADHD or whatever. And I was like, man, that's just being human. I mean, what a load of bullshit, like some of us are just wired to be like that, right?
Exactly. Just be. It's so funny. There's a book called Think and Grow Rich. And in the back chapter, the biggest one is about the 6 ghosts to fear. They're talking about fear of old age, fear of loss of love. And the biggest fear is fear of criticism, fear of judgment. And the only challenge is we let other people affect what we should and shouldn't do. And they start controlling us. And the funniest thing about the fear of criticism is no one's thinking about us. They're thinking about their own daily lives. But the fact is, it's powerful. If I was walking down the street in Nebraska, never been to Nebraska, and I tripped over a curb, the first thing I would do is look up to see who saw me. I don't even know anyone there. Yeah. But it's that powerful of a natural instinct to have it affect what other people see and think about us. And the realities are we should take action with our dreams the second we feel it, but don't let other people dictate what we can and cannot do.
I had a similar thing yesterday. I was on a train coming back from Manchester to South Wales. We ended up changing seats 3 times because I have a 17-month-old daughter. I'm trying to get the seat, right? Which has got the table on and there's single people on there in my way. And my boy had a little bit of an attitude about him. And I reacted to it. And then I thought afterwards, wow, the only reason I reacted to that is because it was an extension of myself. I was embarrassed that people were viewing his behavior as an extension of who I am. And it made me quite, in that little moment, a little bit of shame. I was like, Lee, what did you do that for? Of course, the kid's going to be a little bit pissed off. You keep moving like seat after seat. So it is important, isn't it, that we do understand, what you've just been talking about there and kind of like on our own shit. So
actually, we can go with that one a little bit more. Is, the outside world is a direct reflection to our inside feelings. Meaning, you've gone to a grocery store and you're not in the best of moods, and all of a sudden you see everyone's grumpy and there's long lines, and that's what you see because that's what you feel. But you ever gone to the store where you got a boatload of money and you're getting ready for a party and everyone's in a great mood and you love the checkout person? Well, usually the outside world is a great reflection of what we're going through inside as well.
Okay, so that let's keep going with that one, because I know that in general, when people, I run a forum called Strive Community Forum. There's about 40 people on there checking in on a daily basis, all trying to be someone who doesn't drink alcohol, right? And I'm not telling people that having a positive mental attitude is the only answer, okay? I'm not telling people that. But I would put my money on this. If I put my mortgage on it, that you're more likely to become someone who doesn't drink alcohol if you are happier than if you're miserable. But of course, then somebody pipes in there with quite an interesting comment is, where does cynicism fit in? Where does pessimism fit in? Because sometimes it's a benefit and it's a good thing that you're like that. So what do you think about that?
Well, my mentor, his name is David Corbin. He wrote a book called Illuminate. And he says, nowhere in positive mental attitude, nowhere in personal development does it say not to be a realist. You got to put a spotlight on it. But what happens is most people carry that stuff with them, shame, guilt, remorse, anger, whatever it is, bitterness, and they project it and they spread all that manure around them. Where he says, all you got to do is to get rid of that shame, guilt, remorse, challenge, whatever is to illuminate it. Meaning that if I had a pimple on my nose and I had a first date, I'd knock on the door, she'd answer, and I go, let's get this out of the way. Before we go out, I got a big pimple right here, Kilimanjaro. We'd laugh about it. Now, the whole night, I'm not worrying about hiding it, where I'm at, the whole bit, because I put it out there.
Yeah.
And I believe that the moment that we face our situations, we get rid of them. So therefore we get rid of all that anger and shame and thing, because that's usually the only reflection of the bad shit going on, is we're carrying it inside.
I have definitely noticed when I gave up drinking alcohol. And as soon as I gave up drinking alcohol, the first book I read after that was The Success Principles by Jack Canfield, right? And I wasn't a big reader back then, Greg. But because I'd given up drinking, reading a book, which is Alan Carr's Easy Way to Control Alcohol, when Jack Canfield said, oh, you can be and do whatever you want to be and do, I was like, oh, I believed him. I was like, come on, let's have a bit of it. And I followed everything that he said to the rule. I just went out there and did 5 things every day. I did my visualization board. I meditated. I thought about all of the stuff that I wanted to happen. And it started to happen. Now, I've got a question for you, Greg. What's going on there? Because I have a problem believing that just by saying I want a Ferrari, I'm going to get a Ferrari. I have it's more believable to me that by putting it out there, you're actually telling your cerebellum and your subconscious mind, that is what I want. So while my conscious mind is busy leading my day, I want you to carry on getting on about it. Is that what's going on?
Yeah, Jack and I were just hanging out this last weekend, and we were having, this conversation. Basically, the law of attraction works like this. You do not attract what you want. You only attract more of what you are. So for example, I've never been in a fist fight, but I know people get in fist fights every weekend because that's what they seek. It's called RAS. The scientific version is called Reticular Activator System, meaning that what we start seeking us. Rumi had that quote. And it's kind of like one of these things. Right now, if I sat there and said light switch, look around, you see a light switch. You go, oh yeah, I see a light switch. Well, until I just tell you to look for it, you wouldn't notice that light switch, even though it was sitting there. It's the same thing. So what's happening is we're activating our system to start seeking it. So what's happening is you start finding more of what you're looking for. For example, right now in the airwaves, there's country music, rap music, and classical. But if we took a radio receiver and dial it into an exact frequency, we'd pull it down and enjoy that tunes. Well, that's the way laws of the universe, that's the way energy works. So right now in the universe and the airways, there's success and happiness, and there's relationships and all that good stuff. And what happens, the way you pull it down from the ether is that frequency is the questions in which we ask. So what you're doing is asking great questions, and you're saying, well, what's the good here? What can I see? And therefore that's what gives you. Imagine Google. If you sit there and say, ask it a question, what's my shoe size? It can't answer that because it doesn't know you. But if you say, where do I find size 10 shoes? It can give you those exact answers. That's the way it works. That's a frequency. So for example, a lot of people say, God, why does this always happen to me? And Google Universe goes, oh, this is why, you dumbass, and gives you more of that because that's what you asked for. If you say, when's this shoe going to drop and this go to hell in a handbag? Thursday at 2:00. That's the answer you're asking. But if we start saying, hey, what's the possibility? What's a good thing in this challenge that I'm not seeing? All of a sudden you'll start seeing that. If we say, hey, what's a great relationship around me that I'm not capitalizing on right now? Over here, Bob. And so the whole thing is the questions we ask is the frequency and we dial into, and we can pull it down from the ethers as well. What you're doing is tuning into that right now. It's called tapping the source. And that's why you're seeing it all around.
I saw it. I mean, it was 2009 when I gave up drinking. I then quit my job straight afterwards, and everything I wanted to happen happened for me. That was back in 2009. And then somewhere along the line, what I was doing started to become a little bit tedious, like what I used to do before. And I kind of I don't know, it's like a loss of focus. And because of that loss of focus and doing the meditations every day and visualizing every day and keeping on and on about it, it kind of dissipated. The energy kind of dissipated. So I think for anyone listening here, Greg, and I'll let you chime in a minute, I think it's really important to incorporate some real solid daily practices in your life to keep that kind of feel good vibe or tapping into the right energy sources that are out in the universe. Do you subscribe to that?
Yes, and especially, I mean, if we're talking about recovery or we're talking about not drinking, I believe the first, and I hate to say because it's a long time, but the first 5 years, I think you really got to go deep and you really got to be acclimated. But after that, it goes away. I mean, at least for me and my friends. So for those of you, new to me, I'm 30 years. So, I mean, it's kind of interesting. On my 30th anniversary last month, the CEO, the head of AA, sent me a text saying, "Hey, congratulations on my 30th anniversary," right? And it's so funny how it kind of works. But after a while, it just starts dissipating on its own, because what happens is it has that slingshot effect. It's kind of like going in space. And, majority of all effort of sending a spacecraft out of the orbit is in the first 3 feet. So all the fuel that it has, the first 3 feet is getting off the ground. After that, the trajectory starts going, and then once it gets space, it just keeps going infinitum. I think that's kind of how it is for a lot of us old timers. It was hard. We push it for that first X, but after a while, it starts just going on its own, and then it becomes a lifestyle choice, and just becomes who you are more than, I'd never pick up a bottle and go, "Gosh, I think about this." I'm done. I just don't do that anymore.
Yeah. Congratulations on the 30 years. I like your metaphor of the rocket. I always tell people, try to get as much distance as you can away from that last drink, because the more distance you get from that point, the easier it becomes. But the first, like you said, for you, it's 5 years. It's different for a few other people, It is really tough. And you go through this pain and you go through this suffering, and you're really struggling with your triggers, and you're posting on Strive saying, "Why is it so painful? When is this going to change? Is this working? Why is it so hard?" That's the work. That is, like, it hurts and it's painful and there's suffering, but that means there's progress. If there's none of that, that means you're drinking and everything's like, okay, we're back to where we were again,
Well, I've got a reverse kind of mentality to that one. So for me, again, it wasn't that hard. So I didn't go through all that. All I did is I didn't want to use anymore. So I stopped, and I did everything that everyone told me to do. I mean, I just was the epitome of living the example of the program, I guess, so to speak. After a while, I got tired of going to meetings, and I got tired of hanging out with people in the program, because they're more miserable fucks than they are. And so I stopped hanging out with them. I'm gonna be honest with you. I created my own program and started helping people, because every time I couldn't relate. I couldn't go to a meeting and hear some guy talking about how they, robbed all the jewelry from their mom and went down to buy it. Dude, I live on the beach. I've never experienced anything like that. I can't even closely relate to that.
Yeah.
And everyone kept complaining, and I kept seeing the same people get up and tell their story every week, and it was miserable. And I go, man, if these guys are so miserable being sober, I don't want anything to do with it, to be honest with you, because I'm a pretty happy, positive guy. So I created my own men's group. I created my own little infrastructure. I started hanging out with people that were getting the results I want. I'm going to stop right there and I'm going to repeat that. The secret to success in anything in life is to surround yourself with people that are getting the results you want. So for myself, I would go to these meetings and I kept seeing people have slips, and they'd come back and they retreads and all this stuff. And so for myself, I go, I don't want that in my life. And so I said, okay, who's got some time under their belt and are happy and successful and make money and love their life and are married and, got a good family with a relationship and didn't go to jail and they didn't lose all their shit. I go, that's the people I want to hang out with. And that's who I started assimilating around. And by doing so, here we are 30 years later. So the key to any success is to surround yourself with people that are getting the results that you want. It's so funny. I'm going to tell one story, and this is very powerful, and it's counterintuitive, and this is my story for whatever it's worth. When I was 24 years old when I checked myself into one of these rehab things, and everyone kept telling me what to do. Put a bumper sticker on my car, get a sponsor, do this chant. I go, look, guys, I just don't want to drink and use anymore. I'm over it. And I was going to leave. I packed up all my stuff, and this counselor, there's a sand volleyball court, and says, grab some sand. What do you mean? He goes, hand in the sand. And I did. And he says, when people give you their input, it's not to mess you up. It's just that's their perspective, the place that they're coming from. So honor them and say, thank you very much. Now, if it works for you, you keep it. If not, you let it slip through your fingers. But by saying thank you very much, at least honors them to acknowledge the fact rather than a yeah, but. So someone says, put a bumper sticker on your car. I got a Ferrari. I'm going to go, well, thank you very much. That's not going to work for me. And he goes, well, as you close your hand, these become the nugget, the jewels that work for you. And that will be your program that you carry with you. That's how I've stayed sober this long. That's how I've created 7 corporations. And this is how I've done the amazing things that I have. It's because I find the golden nuggets that work for me by the people that gain the results I want. And those are the ones I apply.
So that story, thanks for sharing that, Greg. That ties in a little bit to what we were saying earlier on about the energy around the universe there, and the law of attraction, because it's not just things that we want to attract or outcomes that we want to attract. Really, more important than anything, we want to attract the right people, and we ain't going to attract the right. Yeah, well, put it this way: if you're going to be cynical and pessimistic, you're likely to attract cynical and pessimistic people. If you want to drink, really, really drink, and you think alcohol is the greatest thing in the world, you're probably going to attract people who mirror those sorts of feelings. What Greg is saying there is, let's find the people who are really successful and are doing what we're doing, but they're doing it in a really happy, positive way. They want to become people who don't drink alcohol. They don't feel like they're forced to have to give up something, because that's the big difference, right? The miserable fucks are the ones who are thinking, oh, fucking hell, I really want to drink, but I can't. And the ones who are really happy are the ones who are saying, I really don't want to drink and use, and I'm feeling really good about it, So I think that's really important. Greg, one of the biggest issues that people have in the Strive Community Forum, they quit drinking alcohol. So because they've quit, they're no longer thinking about it. They're no longer in the act of drinking it, going to the shop, figuring out what they're going to wear, how they're going to fucking have hangovers and all that kind of stuff. It's gone. And all of a sudden they have this white space in front of them in their head, in their house, in their life. And they get so afraid because they don't know how to fill it. Now, you just spoke there of finding people who have gone through this process and have been really successful at it. Now, that's one thing we can do. We can tap into people like that, and they can help us through this white space. But what other golden nuggets do you have for people who suddenly, and I'm really thinking here of housewives, for example, who have given up their lives really to look after their children, and then they've fled the nest, and now they've given up drinking, and they've at an empty house thinking, what the fuck do I do? What golden nuggets have you got here to get people off the ground?
It's kind of interesting. For myself, I'll tell you what I did is I created one of those bucket lists, so to speak. And it was really interesting. I sat there and said, well, I know I kept focusing, like, I don't want to drink, I don't want to use, I don't want to think. And then my sponsor at that time said, that's a great story, Greg. I'm tired of hearing that. And he goes, I'm brand new. And he goes, what do you want to do? And I went, great question. So I got a board out and said, well, I want to jump out of an airplane. I want to climb Mount Kilimanjaro. I want to run with bulls. I want to do the thing. He goes, great. Then that's what you focus on. And so I changed my focus towards what I wanted rather than what I don't want. And by doing that, I chased it. What's interesting about that is, and by the way, this is no setup that he's asked me that question. Last week, I actually accomplished the last thing on my bucket list. So on that bucket list was to get 30 years sober, by the way.
Right.
The last thing, that was the second to last. But the last thing was to get a PhD. I mean, I'm 24 years old, school dropout, never went to college guy. And I just got my honorary PhD with Tonino Lamborghini. He and I went to India, and we got our honorary PhDs. And it's interesting. I want people to understand this, because I want to talk about success for a second, because, you and I don't know each other, right? So a lot of people, no one has a clue, something like what I do and things of that nature. So I just want to give you kind of like an upside of what it can look like. This is what a sober life can look like. I've been married, divorced, married, divorced, married, divorced. But guess what? In the state of California, 3 marriages, 3 divorces, not one lawyer. Know why? Because I live the life of the program. I don't lie, cheat, and steal. And I realized that people could be angry at the truth, but they'll never hold it against you. And so that's how I've stayed friends with my past relationships. Same thing, I've had business successes, business setbacks, but the reality is now I've been published in 64 books, 45 languages. I'm now a PhD in literature of all things, and I make movies and impact the lives of literally people around the world. And the people you're talking about, like Bob Proctor and I, wrote a book together last year called Think and Grow Rich, Thoughts Are Things. And we went around the world and interviewed the most amazing, powerful, people alive and tell their stories in books and film. And that's what we do. So the whole thing is surround yourself again with people that are doing and getting the results you want. Let me give you an example. When I wanted to become a best-selling author, I did not go to people who wrote books. I went to people who sold books because I wanted to be a best-selling author, not a best-writing author. And I realized there's so powerful in the distinction of the questions that we ask the universe. So it's very important to be very clear and concise with what it is that we want. We start throwing it out there and sharing it with people. You put it out, and then all of a sudden those things will start coming. Like you said, if you're cynical and pessimistic, you'll attract more of that. You know why? Because you're going to be at a restaurant and you can be bitching about something, and then someone's going to overhear and go, oh, yeah, you think that's bad? Let me tell you about. And then you just got this going on nonstop. So the whole thing, guess what? That also works in success. People sit there and talk about, hey, you know what? I just finished my first major motion picture. It's about the founder of Make-A-Wish Foundation. It's going to impact the lives of millions of people. Let me tell you how amazing this journey is. And then someone else can go, hey, go what? That's awesome. I got this idea also for this movie. And I have a feeling we can impact a lot of people. Then that becomes the conversation. So it's what you put out. It's that energy. It's the conversation that feeds itself. They'll give you more of exactly just that.
Okay. I relate to that a lot because that's pretty much how I work, right? So I remember, I'll give you an example. I remember being in the World Series of Poker. I was doing some interviews with some poker players there, and there was a guy there. His name is Talal Shakurchi. He's one of the most successful hedge fund managers in Europe. He's one of the top 20 philanthropists in the UK. He's worth 100 million plus, right? So I go up to Talal and say, hi, you don't know me. I'm Lee Davey, but I'd love to interview you. And he said, what do you want to interview me for? I said, you fucking kidding me? You're worth over 100 million. That is something that I want to learn about. And Talal said, look, Lee, I don't want to do an interview with you because it's not what I want to do, but here's what I'll do. You come to London, you have dinner with me. I went to London, I had dinner with him. I have dinner with him every month near enough right now. And I've done for the last 12, 24 months. Over a period of time, then I could say to him, mate, Talal, can you help me with my business here that I want some ideas from you, you know? Now, I was able to do that, Greg, because there's a part of me that is a little cocky fucker, right? There's a little confident little man inside of me, right? That emerged somewhere along my path. But a lot of people, when they stop drinking alcohol, that cockiness, that confidence has been beaten out of them, right? Alcohol has beaten the shit out of them. They're really low, they're really down. And I'll say to some of them, look, no, you've just got to go and surround yourself with these people. You've got to go ask these people. You just got to go and take action. And they just can't get out of the funk because they don't think they have the pizzazz. They don't think that anybody's going to say yes to them. So they get this inertia. Any tips or advice on the people who are not as confident as, say, me or you?
Well, first of all, they're not me or you. So I don't think it's fair for me to put my stuff on them and them to put their stuff on me. So therefore, I have no interest in quilting or learning their business either. So the realities are we are exactly where we choose to be. One of the biggest challenge about the program is the whole thing about codependency. Like we want everyone else to be happy and have the shit that we got. And the realities are when they're ready, then I can give the answer. So let me reframe that question that you just had. So the people that are ready to go out and start reaching out to people outside their comfort zone, here's my answer, is that the most successful people are also the most available people. Let me say again, the most successful people are the most available. If you're brand new at something, you're happy-go-lucky, you're fresh, you're cool. If you're at the top of your field, you're happy-go-lucky, you got nothing to prove. If you're in the middle, pain in the neck. You're filled with ego. You're edging God out. So the secret is to literally jump to the front of the line. And you'll be shocked and amazed how accessible they truly are. So again, for those of you who are not familiar with my work, my job, my full-time job is to travel around the world to meet the most powerful and influential human beings alive and then tell their story in book and film. I'm talking about everyone from the inventor of the cellular phone to the guy who invented the credit card magnetic strip, from the founder of UGG boots, the founder of Make-A-Wish, to the guy who invented string theory, the guy who started NASCAR, to the guy. I mean, this is my full-time job. And I realized that the most successful people are truly the most accessible. Let me give you an example. It is easier for me to go from here and get in touch with the founder of Remax Real Estate than it would be for me to go from here to meet the guy who owns the local Remax branch.
Right.
So the whole thing, I just go to the front of the line. That's almost like as a kid, we're taught not to jump to the front of the line. I disagree. In life and business and success, just go straight to the top.
Yeah.
And the most influential and powerful people will also be the most available. But you did something different, by the way. You did two things that I want to acknowledge. One, when that person you asked them for an interview said no, instead of getting butt hurt, you saw an opportunity. And a lot of people would walk away and feel sad or what have you, but you sat there and said, okay, well, how can this become a positive? And not only did you see that and acknowledge it, but you did something crazy. You took action.
Mm-hmm.
And it's the action and the law of attraction that makes your dreams come true. You got to think it, feel it. Ultimately, you got to get off your ass and do it. And then lastly, here's what you did. You honored your mentor by not only showing up, but by continuing taking actionable steps towards their counsel. And this is what people miss. You know, when I wanted to be a major public speaker, I went to my idol. His name was Les Brown. I said, Les, I want to be a great speaker like you. Give me one nugget that I could do. He did. I did something stupid. I went and applied it. I went to him a month later, said, Mr. Brown, I met you a month ago. I asked for a nugget. You gave it to me. I did it. Here's my results. What should I do next, sir? What's the chance of him giving me that next nugget?
Yeah.
100%. And what happens is now Les is my best buddy. And the realities are is that my heroes are now my friends. And the way that you do that is by honoring your mentors.
Yeah, I one of the things that you just said there, which applies to my friendship with Talal, is when I sit down with Talal for dinner, Talal's always like, right, Lee, what's going on in your life? Tell me about Strive. Tell me about the truth about alcohol. Tell me about the Alcohol Addiction podcast. I'm like, no, Talal. We're always talking about me. Let's talk about you. And Talal's like, no, your life is far more interesting than mine. And I'm like, how is that possible, dude? You travel around the world trying to figure out how you can give £100 million away to like charities. That's got to be more interesting. And he's like, no, it isn't. It isn't more interesting. So I thought that was really important. I think the other thing I want to mention to the listeners here is Talal could have said no. Talal could have said, no, I don't want an interview and I don't want anything to do with you. I don't want dinner with you, nothing. That doesn't give you carte blanche to turn around and say to yourself, well, I'm a fucking failure. I'm never going to ask anybody else again. It could be fucking 50 people say no, but the 51st person changes your life, man. You cannot just give up. You got to have grit and determination. If you don't have the grit and determination to ask somebody to help change your life, you're never going to give up drinking alcohol. Over to you, Greg.
Yeah, and the big part of that one is it has nothing to do with you. Because what happens, so the best thing about that one is that it has to do with what you're going to learn from that person, then share it with somebody else. And sometimes we are just a conduit. So the realities are sometimes, you know, us getting beaten up a little bit and going through the trials and tribulations to learn a lesson has nothing to do with it. He can teach you the greatest lesson that has nothing to do with you, but you're going to meet a buddy one day and he's going through it and go, you know what? This guy told me something one time. Maybe this will help you. Maybe you'll impact the world by just being that conduit. So sometimes we have to have that open mind of information. Again, that hand in the sand. Yeah. Maybe it works for you. It's such a thing, but by saying thank you very much, at least gave you a moment to accept it and put it in the storage bank.
I like that. That reminded me of on Strive Community Forum when I say to some of the people on there, look, you've got to give back. You've got to serve. Every time you post a thread, I want you to reply to 5. Like I want you to help 5 people for every time you post. And people say, I'm only 4 days sober. I don't know how to help people. Yes, you do, because you're 4 days sober when a lot of people aren't, you know, like that. Like I just wrote the framework for my first book, Greg, and I looked at it and I thought, wow, this is the byproduct of Melanie Joy, Robert Fritz, and Jeremy Griffith. Not me. I'm just a conduit to their work, and I've transferred it into something that applies to alcoholism, and now I'm conduit in their work, and I'm sure that they got their work from some other mentors. Everybody has something to give. One more thing to ask you before you disappear. You said when the people are ready. Now, this is one of the big things at Strive Community Forum. I'll let you into some numbers. We're going to talk numbers for a minute, Greg. I'm going to bore you with some numbers, right? I have a training course, 3-month training course to help people become people who don't drink alcohol. Only 44% graduate. Only 44%, Greg. But 77% of those who graduate don't drink alcohol, right? And the other 23 change their lives fundamentally and drink a whole lot less. And the reason that is because the 56% are not ready. The 44% are ready. So how can we get more people ready? Or is it just people have to take 100% responsibility and then we're there for them when they're ready? How does it work?
You know, it's interesting. By the way, statistically speaking, you're at an extraordinarily high success rate. So it's interesting how you say only 44%. But again, if you go back and look at the numbers of like Alcoholics Anonymous or, you know, what have you, it's like less than, you know, it's 95% failure rate. And so actually you get an extraordinarily high success rate, first of all. So it's funny, sometimes we don't look at our own successes. I'm sitting here kind of I'm thinking, what the hell do you teach? You magic beans or something?
That's my perfectionism in my
wow, that's pretty darn snappy. But then it goes down again, that old cliche. It's like when the student's ready, a teacher appears. You know, when someone's ready and they have accountability and responsibility, what goes on in their life, that's when the miracle happens. You can't force people to be happy. You can. It's so funny. There's a great quote that says you cannot negotiate feelings, meaning that if you see someone and they're not happy, go be happy, and then try to tell them all the reasons they should be happy. You can't negotiate their happiness. It just doesn't work that way. It's the same thing. You can't negotiate someone's success or someone's sobriety or someone's whatever. And the realities are, it's from your standpoint too, is that all you can do is be a conduit, a beacon of what's possible, and then let the right people come into your sphere and then help the people that want to grow. It's so interesting. If someone wants to meet with me, I get so many people that want to do that, and it's such an honor and blessing, but I make them work for it. I call it bleeding from their knuckles. I don't try to save everyone. And my mentor taught me something. It's called roots. And he says, Greg, your biggest challenge is you want everyone to have what you have. I go, yeah. And he goes, but that's why you'll fail and it'll wear on your head. He goes, just look for the people that are willing to bleed. And I go, why are they bleeding? And he goes, roots. What the hell are you talking about? He goes, you'll see someone who's in a gutter. They're down and out. You want to pick them up, clean them up, dust them off, fix them. I go, yeah. He goes, that's why you fail. He goes, look for the people who are bleeding. And I go, why are they bleeding? Because they don't like being in that situation. They're flinging their hands out, right, trying to grab a handful of roots to pull themselves out. And he says, if you can find the select group, that 44%, and yell encouraging words and tell them where to grab the next set, eventually they'll pull themselves out and then teach others to do the same. He said, it's not trying to fix everyone. What you do is look for the people that are willing to bleed, yell encouraging words, and those are the people that will change the world.
You heard that from the mouth of Greg Reid. Get out there and start bleeding. Otherwise, you're never going to change yourself, let alone change the world. Greg, thank you very much. Great being 30 years sober. I just want to say big debt of gratitude for all the work that you're putting in there to trying to change people's lives with your principles, with your theories, and with your hard work and dedication. And thank you for being a guest on the Alcohol Addiction podcast. Really enjoyed speaking to you.
Absolutely. Have me back again.
Definitely.